Returning to our top story, and the Prime Minister has dropped his plans to criminalise hate speech after the joint bill did not receive majority support in the Senate. The proposed bill will now be split in two. One will seek to ban extremist groups like neo-Nazis, and the other will enforce a $1 billion gun buyback scheme. Well, joining us live now is Shooters Union Australia Vice President David Brown. David, thank you very much for joining us. We're hearing from plenty of people that this is being rushed and there's a lack of consultation. What's your opinion?
Well, thanks for having me, Janie. The Prime Minister's clearly poorly briefed, doesn't seem to understand the consequences of proposed laws, and rushing laws into place is not a sign of strength. It's actually a sign of recklessness, and it's purely political. So he's failing the legacy of the Bondi victims, in our view, with this bill falling apart. And this is what happens when you just rush in and knee-jerk react. The least he could do right now is put a pause on all of this, send it off to the Royal Commission, and any bills that go through Parliament, send them off to a Senate inquiry so that any tune-ups along the way can actually be debated properly and bring in industry experts that could actually help. But so far, there's just nothing in this that's really helping public safety whatsoever.
What about unintended consequences in the sporting community, for example?
Well, that's a cracker. This bill's been available now since Tuesday last week, and overnight we found the hidden detail. And for a minute there, we thought this is bad. It's now worse. So effectively, they're going to completely block importation of handguns. No more. And you can read in there, it's got provisions for sporting applications, sporting use. But then when you go to the finer detail, the background documents, that doesn't include handguns. Only covers semi-auto shotguns for people with injuries and disability. That's all that does. So overnight, we would kill off handguns. So think about this. Dan Repicoli, the Labor MP for somewhere down in New South Wales, Hunter Valley region, no more Dan Repicolis in the future because newcomers won't be able to buy things. What about the police officer, the detective at Bondi, that actually stopped the threat? He did it because he was able to take a long-distance shot at 40-odd metres effectively. You don't learn that at police training unless you're in a CERT or a TRG team. The average copper doesn't do that. He was only that good because of his sporting practice and his sporting pursuits. You want to kill that off too. So it's the industry themselves would suffer, but I think the greater good of the community would suffer. And look, we can't stop illegal cigarettes. We can't stop cocaine and all sorts of other things coming in. The criminals are going to they're importing handguns and things now, all 3D printing them. We're not going to stop that, but we are going to stop people like me who love to competitively shoot. And we've got Olympics coming up here in Brisbane in a couple of years' time. What does that say? We don't want to be in the shooting sports any longer in this country.
In terms of the buyback and the cost to taxpayers and the states, what are you seeing? Do you agree with these numbers that the government are putting forward? $1 billion, I think it is, for the buyback?
It's laughable. First thing I'll say about a buyback, we call it compensated confiscation, but let's just call it a buyback. The numbers they're talking about might apply to maybe New South Wales. They're bandying numbers like $1 billion. If you did it, i.e. like back in 96, 97, 98, the total cost of remunerating everybody or compensating everybody for business, for ammunition, for scopes, all the other stuff, and you applied New South Wales, West Australian kind of laws across the whole country, well, then you'd probably have a bill of maybe 15 billion. And this is coming from industry, like people have actually worked that out. Someone even said here in Queensland, it could be 5 billion. So just extrapolate that. Fortunately, Queensland, Tasmania, the Northern Territory thus far are not interested. So, the taxpayer might be partly saved, but we're in a cost of living crisis, allegedly. Why are we wasting billions of dollars on theft of guns from law-abiding people when actually you could spend it on ASIO and get them to do their job? That might stop another Bondi, but people handing in 1 or 2 or 3 of their guns out of their however many they've got, not going to change public safety one bit. It's a waste of money.
I guess on the flip side, people are saying that there are a lot of guns out there and, you know, this will help. But again, you mentioned how it will make people safe. That's the other question, isn't it?
Well, I think anyone with an ounce of intellectual honesty has got to say, you've got 7 guns, you've got 30. I can only use one at a time. The number of guns people have is irrelevant. There are some collectors that have hundreds. You know, like it just, how many cars is too many? How many golf clubs is too many? And, you know, we know people get domestic violence. They get attacked with sporting implements. How many cricket bats and golf clubs or tennis rackets are too many? I mean, it's just silly. You know, whether you've got one or whether you've got 101 or 1,001 makes no difference. And, you know, this whole concept of public safety, anyone who really, really wants to go and do something really bad, they only need one.
We've got to wrap it up just quickly. You know, there's also 3D guns that we're hearing about. What can you tell us about that? Because they're not registered, are they?
No. In fact, most of the criminal guns that come into the country, and there would be thousands of them, they're not registered. 3D printed ones, I wouldn't shoot one myself. Chances are it'd probably give yourself a nasty injury if doing so. But certainly, you know, there's plenty of laws about 3D printing and manufacture. So what do we need more for, and why do we need to induce unintended consequences when we've already got enough laws already?
All right, David Brown, yes, we're going to be watching closely. It looks like that bill is going to pass, but we know there's different state rules as well. So very interesting time ahead. Really appreciate you joining us and for your analysis. Thank you.
Thank you, Janie.